The first thing my son said to me that night wasn't, "I'm scared." It wasn't, "Come get me," he said. "I'm sorry, Mom." He was 8 years old. It was 12:17 in the morning in Rotterdam, and I was 4,000 miles away from him. The woman holding the phone out to him was a stranger to me, the manager of a grocery store in Ohio, where my son had been sitting on a bench outside the entrance since 4 o'clock that afternoon. I asked her where my husband was. She said she didn't know. 6 days later, I understood why. And 13 days after that, I found out it wasn't the first time. I remember the exact minute because I had looked at the clock 30 seconds earlier and thought, if I fall asleep right now, I can still get 5 hours. Day 8 of 10. A hotel room near the port. Laptop still open on the desk. A meeting with the terminal operators at 8 in the morning that I had spent 3 weeks preparing for. The number on the screen was Ohio, not one I knew. For 1 second, I almost let it ring out. Is this Corinne Blaisdell? Yes. Are you Elias's mother? I sat straight up. Yes. Who is this? My name is Yolanda Price. I manage the Millbrook Market over on Kilbourne Road. A pause. I don't want to frighten you. That sentence has never once in human history been followed by anything reassuring. There's a little boy here who gave me your number. I was already out of bed. What little boy? A longer pause. Your son. I stopped moving. All I could hear was the air conditioner rattling under the window and, very faintly, a truck reversing somewhere down by the water. He's been sitting on the bench outside since about 4 this afternoon. I did the math twice, because the first time I refused to believe it. 6 hours behind. It was 6:15 in the evening there, more than 2 hours. Is he hurt? No, ma'am. He doesn't appear hurt. Is he crying? No. That frightened me more than yes would have. Where's my husband? I don't know. I asked him who was coming to get him. She said it gently, the way you set something breakable down. He told me nobody. Then I heard a door, and voices, and Yolanda saying, "Honey, your mom's on the phone. I'm sorry, Mom, not. I'm scared, not come get me." I sat down on the edge of the bed. Why are you apologizing? Because you're working. I had to look at the wall for a moment before I could speak. Eli, listen to me. You never have to apologize for calling me. Not ever. Do you understand? Okay. Where's Grant? On the boat? What boat? The Disney one, with Weston and Harper. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it. Grant had mentioned, weeks ago, that he might drive the kids down to Florida over spring break. I had asked if that was too much driving. He said they hadn't decided. Eli, who's been staying with you? Nobody answered. Eli, who's been staying with you? Nobody. Since when? Saturday, I think. I looked at the beige hotel carpet and had the distinct sensation of having stepped into somebody else's life. Why didn't you go home, sweetheart? He was quiet. Then, very softly, because it was going to get dark. That was all he said, and it was enough. He had worked out that if he stayed near the store, there would still be people around when the light went. I told Yolanda to stay with him. She said, "I'm not leaving him," before I finished the sentence. Then I hung up and dialed 911. Nothing happened. A recorded voice said something in Dutch. I dialed again, slower, pressing each number like the phone had simply misunderstood me. Nothing. Then I remembered where I was standing. There is no 911 in the Netherlands. Here it is 112, and 112 would have connected me to a dispatcher in South Holland who could not have sent one single car to Kilbourne Road. I typed Columbus, Ohio Police non-emergency number into a search bar with hands that would not hold still, and read the digits out loud to an operator 4,000 miles from the child they belonged to. By then, Yolanda Price had already called 911 herself. Of course she had. She was the one standing next to him. I was not allowed to panic the ordinary way. Even my panic needed an area code. My sister Nell lives 25 minutes from my house. She answered on the fourth ring. Nell, I need you to get dressed. There was no sleepy confusion after that. What happened? Eli's at the Millbrook Market on Kilbourne. He's been alone. How long? I looked toward the hotel window. Almost a week. She went quiet. Then I heard movement. A drawer. Keys. I'm leaving now. I stayed on the line the entire drive. I have never in my life been so grateful for the sound of somebody else's turn signal. Here is the part I did not expect. The part nobody tells you. My sister could not simply put my son in her car and take him home. By the time Nell reached the parking lot, there were 2 Columbus police cruisers outside the entrance. An officer asked her to stay beside her vehicle. He took her driver's license. He asked how she was related to the child, and how long she had known him, and whether she had ever been the subject of a child welfare case. Then he asked for me. Nell held her phone out toward him and put it on speaker, and I stood in a hotel room in the Netherlands answering questions to prove that I was my son's mother. His full legal name, Elias Rourke. His date of birth, March the 2nd. The name of his school, Whetstone Elementary. His pediatrician, Dr. Amankwa, on Indianola. Any allergies, amoxicillin. The officer was not unkind. That was almost the worst part. He was patient and thorough, and every question he asked was one a stranger has the right to ask when a child turns up alone. And every question took time, and time was the only thing I did not have. Somewhere in the middle of it, another voice came on. A woman from the after-hours line at Franklin County Children's Services. She asked whether an emergency custody screening had been opened. She asked whether the relative on scene could be verified tonight. And then the officer said the sentence I still hear when I cannot sleep. Ma'am, if we can't confirm a relative placement tonight, he'll be taken into emergency temporary custody until we can. I said, She's his aunt. She's standing right there, he said. I understand. We still have to verify. It took 9 minutes. I counted, because counting was the only thing my hands could do. For 9 minutes, my son legally belonged to nobody, not to me, because I was 4,000 miles away and could not put my hand on his shoulder, not to Grant, because Grant was somewhere in the Caribbean with his phone in a drawer. Eli was a boy sitting in the front seat of an SUV in a grocery store parking lot while adults looked up records to determine which of them he was allowed to go home with. Then the officer handed Nell back her license and said, You're good, ma'am. And I heard my sister exhale, and something in my chest came unlocked. She video called me from the lot. Eli was in her passenger seat, wrapped in one of her old sweatshirts. Because he was cold, he looked small and tired and, more than anything, embarrassed. That embarrassed look nearly finished me. You're going home with Aunt Nell tonight, okay? He nodded. I'm coming home. When? As soon as I can get a flight, and my 8-year-old said, You don't have to. You're working. I looked at my son through a screen from 4,000 miles away. Yes, I said. I do. I booked the first seat I could get. An early connection through Detroit. Only after the confirmation email come through did I sit down on the edge of that bed and open my messages with Grant. They were all still there. 6 days of perfectly ordinary conversation. How's the port? Did the terminal guys go for it? Airport coffee should be prosecuted. And 2 days earlier, Eli's fine. Stop worrying and focus on work. I read that one 3 times. Then, while I was still holding the phone, a new message arrived. Hope the meeting went well. Eli's already asleep. I sat with that for a long time. He didn't know about Yolanda. He didn't know about the officers, or the 9 minutes, or the woman from the after-hours line. He didn't know Nell had him, and he had no idea I was about to be on a plane. I typed slowly. Yeah, long day. I'll call you tomorrow. Then I zipped my suitcase and went down to the lobby to wait for a taxi in the dark. Nell picked me up in Columbus. She didn't hug me right away. She took my suitcase, put it in the back, and said, "He's okay. He slept. He ate 2 pancakes." That almost made me laugh. 2? 3. Technically, he said the third one didn't count because it was smaller. There was my son, still negotiating portions like an attorney. I was standing behind the storm door when we pulled in. He opened it before I reached the porch and ran at me. And for about 5 seconds, neither of us said anything. Then he pulled back and looked up. Am I in trouble? For what? For leaving the house. No. He studied my face. Not even a little? Not even a little. He nodded. The way a person nods when something has been formally entered into the record. We went to my house that afternoon so he could get clean clothes. I let him go in first. The place looked normal. That was the worst of it. Nothing broken, no mess, no scene. Just a house where an 8-year-old had been trying very hard not to cause one. Bowls in the sink, microwave wrappers in the trash. A kitchen chair dragged across the floor and left beside the cabinets. Because he couldn't reach the shelf where I keep the cereal and the soup. On the counter, a sheet of notebook paper. His handwriting leaning uphill. Monday, pizza. Tuesday, mac and cheese. Wednesday, cereal. Thursday, soup. Then nothing. I forgot Friday, he said behind me. I had crackers. The milk was still in the refrigerator. One smell was enough. Beside the microwave were Grant's instructions in his own handwriting. Wi-Fi password, alarm code, heating times, emergency numbers. And at the bottom, don't call your mom unless it's an emergency. She needs to focus on work. I read it twice. Then I looked at the refrigerator door, and it was bare. For 4 years, there had been a card taped there in my handwriting. Nell's number, Dr. Amanqua, the school office, our insurance line. I opened the junk drawer under the microwave. It was in there, under a stack of pizza coupons. Grant hated things taped to the refrigerator. He said it made the kitchen look cluttered. I had always thought that was taste. Eli's coat was on the bench by the back door. I picked it up to hang it and something crackled in the pocket. 3 grocery receipts, folded into small squares, stacked in order by date. Why'd you keep these? He shrugged. To prove it. Prove what? That I didn't waste it. I went next door. Mrs. Ostrander's house was dark. Her car gone. Nell came up behind me. She's in Cincinnati. She told me last week. She's at her daughter's for spring break. I pulled out my phone. There it was. A group text from 3 days before I flew out. Heading to Cincinnati Wednesday. Back next Tuesday. Grab my packages if you see them. Grant had given it a thumbs up. Later, I found a message he'd sent her separately. We'll be away a few days. Keep an eye on the place when you're back. Not on Eli. On the place. That evening, I sat at the desktop in the little office off the kitchen. I only wanted to know when he was coming home. So I searched our email for travel confirmations. The cruise came up. At first, I thought I had the wrong reservation, because it was dated 3 months earlier. 4 guests: Grant Blaisdell, Weston Blaisdell, Harper Blaisdell, Elias Rourke. I read my son's name twice. I had been booked, not forgotten, not overlooked, typed out, spelled correctly, sitting 4th in a list of 4. I kept scrolling. 2 weeks later, a modification, 3 guests, Eli had been removed. Then I opened the credit card statement because by then I needed to see the money. February 10th, a refund from the cruise line to our shared card. February 11th, 1 day later, 3 new charges to the same card. A stateroom upgrade from ocean view to veranda. A dinner reservation at the adults-only restaurant, for 2. A shore excursion at the private island, for 3. I put the 3 charges into the calculator on my phone and compared them to the refund. They were off by $40. $40. That was the distance between the money that had belonged to my son and a balcony over the water. I didn't cry. I just sat there thinking that some facts are so precise they become rude. Grant called the next evening. I was at Nell's kitchen table. Eli was 10 feet away in the family room. Watching a nature program about sharks, I almost didn't answer. Then I did. "There she is," he said. "How's my world traveler?" There was music behind him, people talking, somebody laughing. "How'd the meeting go?" "Fine. Told you they'd go for it." I let him talk. He complained about the humidity. He said Harper had eaten enough soft serve to bankrupt a small nation. He said Weston had put his phone down for almost 40 consecutive minutes, which he considered a parenting triumph. "How's Florida?" I asked. The smallest pause. "Good. Nothing else. No boat. No Eli." So I said, "How's Eli?" "He's fine." I looked at my son, 10 feet away, in a sweatshirt that wasn't his. "When did you last talk to him?" Another pause. "What?" "When did you last talk to Eli?" "Yesterday. Maybe the day before." "Why?" "Corinne, I'm on vacation. What's with the interrogation?" I didn't say anything. "You always get weird when you're jet-lagged," he said. I hung up, mid-sentence, without saying goodbye. I had been married to that man for 4 years. It was the first time I had ever hung up on him. I sat there watching the screen go dark and realized my hands were shaking, not from anger, from having just done something I hadn't known I was allowed to do. Then I scrolled back. 10 days of messages. I read them from the beginning, slowly, and I counted 9 times. 9 times I had asked to talk to my son. He's in the shower. He's already asleep. He's over at Cody's. He just went up to bed. His tablet's charging. He's eating. We're at the park. I'll have him call you. He'll call you tomorrow. Promise. 9 requests. 9 different answers. Not one of them the same twice. Because the same answer twice would have been noticeable. And underneath all of it, the arithmetic. Eli got out of school at 3:30, which was 9:30 at night, where I was, sitting in a hotel restaurant with clients. Eli went to bed at 8:30, which was 2:30 in the morning. There were maybe 40 minutes in each 24 hours when both of us were awake and unoccupied, and Grant had a reason ready for every one of them. He wasn't lazy. He was working. I want to be exact about this, because for a while I told myself I had simply failed to call. I hadn't. I had asked 9 times. What I had failed to do was refuse to believe him. Detective Marcus Ruiz called me on Thursday. He was assigned the report out of the substation on Morse Road, and he asked if I could come in. He had pulled the security footage from the Millbrook Market, the camera that faces the entrance, and the bench. I said I had already lived through Thursday. He said, "I'd like you to see something else." He played it on a monitor with the sound off. Tuesday, 3:50 in the afternoon, my son walks into frame from the left, sits down on the bench, and puts his hands in his lap. He sits there for 41 minutes. Then he stands up and walks home. Wednesday, 4:05. Same bench, same posture, 1 hour and 20 minutes. Then he stands up and walks home. Thursday. He came at 4, and he did not stand up. The timestamp in the corner ran on, and the light behind him went from white to gold to gray, and people came out of the sliding doors with bags and drove away. We don't know why he went back to the house the first 2 days, Ruiz said, but I knew. He had gone where the people were. He sat in the middle of adults pushing carts and arguing about the price of eggs and calling somebody from the parking lot. And he stayed until he had taken in enough of them. And then he went home and locked the door twice. By Thursday, he had run out of enough. I asked Ruiz what happened next and whether it was up to me. He turned the monitor off. Ma'am, I need you to understand something. This isn't your case. The state of Ohio charges him, not you. If you forgive him tomorrow morning, I still come to work. I said I understood. I don't think you do yet, he said, not unkindly. Most people in your chair think they're holding the leash. You're not. That's the good news. Patrice Vandermeer was not what I expected. She was about 60, wore her reading glasses on a chain, and had a coffee mug on her desk that said, "World's okayest lawyer." She read my notes for 3 minutes without saying anything. Where is he now? With my sister. Good. Does your husband know you're home? No. She took the glasses off. Then let's talk about what you can actually do, and what it costs. She said there were 2 roads. The first was a civil protection order. Under Ohio law, a spouse and a child living in the home are household members, and endangering a child falls inside the statute. She could walk into the Franklin County Courthouse and get an emergency order the same afternoon, one-sided, without Grant present. It could give me exclusive possession of the house. He would not be allowed to come back. And the second? You wait, you keep collecting, you let the detective and the agency build the record. Why would I ever choose the second one? Patrice folded her hands. Because an emergency order isn't the end. It's the beginning. There's a full hearing within 7 to 10 days. And at that hearing, your husband gets a lawyer. And that lawyer is entitled to test the evidence. She let that sit. The evidence is an 8-year-old boy. They'd put him on the stand. They'd try. Sometimes a judge speaks with the child privately instead. Sometimes not, she shrugged, and it was not a careless shrug. I can have that man out of your house by 6 o'clock tonight. The price is your son sitting in a room across from a lawyer who is paid to ask him why he didn't call his mother. You choose. I chose the second road. I want to say I chose it out of strategy. I chose it because I could still hear Eli asking whether he was in trouble, and I was not going to hand him to somebody who could make him ask it again. He told me about the secret in the car. Children will tell you terrible things while looking out a window. Maybe it's easier when nobody is staring at them. Grant said it was a guy's secret. He said, I kept both hands on the wheel. What kind of secret? That I took care of myself the whole week. So that means I'm big now. He shrugged at the glass. But if you knew, you'd worry. And then you'd think I was little again. He said it the way you'd report the weather. I didn't want you to think I was little. That was when I understood something I hadn't before. Grant never ordered my son to stay quiet. He made the silence into a prize. Every unanswered message, every fine, every yes, I'm okay. Eli hadn't been hiding. He'd been holding on to a title. That night, I stood in our closet. Grant had built a row of coat hooks the first spring we were married. A strip of oak with the names burned into it. Weston, Harper, Grant. Eli hung his backpack on the doorknob. He had hung it on the doorknob for 4 years. I asked about it once. The first year, Grant said the board only fit 3. I said then make another one. He said sure, he would. 4 Christmases went by. Nell was in my kitchen the next morning when it came apart. She said something about Eli being an easy house guest, and I laughed, and I said, "He was fine at your place in November too, right? The Chicago trip." She looked at me for a long moment. "Corinne, he's never stayed at my house. Not once." I put my coffee down. Chicago, 1 night. In November. Detroit, 2 nights. In January. Both times I had asked who was watching Eli. Both times Grant had said, "He's at Nell's. They're having a great time." He hadn't panicked and made a bad choice. He had run it once, then twice. Then, when nobody noticed either time, he booked 7 days. That afternoon, a woman named Tanya Brill from Franklin County Children's Services sat at my kitchen table and put a safety plan in front of me, 1 page. It said that Grant Blaisdell was to have no unsupervised contact with Elias Rourke until further notice. I signed my name at the table where we had eaten dinner for 4 years. 6 days wasn't the night he lost control. 6 days was the night he got confident. I had 20 minutes before he got home, and I did not spend them crying. I forwarded every message, receipt, and reservation to an email address he had never seen. I photographed the counter, the chair, the list, the instructions. I opened an account at a credit union on High Street and moved exactly half of my own paycheck into it. Not a dollar more. Then I called the Millbrook Market and asked what their camera system did with old footage. 30 days, the man said. Then it writes over itself. I asked him, in writing, to preserve everything from the first of the month. Patrice had told me not to improvise. I didn't improvise. I documented. He came through the garage at 4:23, carrying 2 bags and wearing a Disney Cruise t-shirt I had never seen. I was tan. That bothered me more than it should have. It seemed offensive that sunshine had happened to him. Weston came in behind him. Then Harper with a shopping bag. I said, "Why don't you two take your things upstairs?" And they did. Grant opened the refrigerator. "Do we have beer?" "Sit down." He straightened up slowly and closed the door. I had put 3 things on the table, his handwritten instructions, the police report number, and a sheet of notebook paper that said, Monday, pizza. He looked at the papers, then at me. And what came across his face first was not guilt. It was arithmetic. I watched my husband try to work out how much I knew. Mrs. Ostrander was right next door. She was in Cincinnati. I slid my phone across. Her message. His thumbs up underneath it. "Okay, I forgot." "You told Eli she was there." People send 50 texts a day. Corinne? Who was taking care of my son? Eli's mature for his age. He's 8. I left food. You left ingredients. A package of raw chicken is not dinner to an 8-year-old. He could have called me. He did. Twice. Thursday morning, at 9:40 and 9:51. Both unanswered. That afternoon, he walked to the store. I was on a ship. Service is spotty. He heard it himself. I didn't have to say anything. He sat back and rubbed his face. And then he said it. That trip was supposed to be time with my kids. The kitchen went very quiet. Eli lives in this house with you. You know what I mean? I do. I finally do. It took me 4 years and a security tape, but I do. And then I stopped being careful. You keep saying you never thought of it as leaving him. Fine. What did you call it in November? What did you call it in January? Nell has never had him. Not one night. You didn't make a mistake. Grant, you ran a test. You gave it 1 night to see whether anything happened. Then 2. And when nobody noticed either time, not a teacher, not a neighbor, not me, you booked 6 days. You didn't forget my son. You priced him 3 times, and every time he came back cheap. I heard my own voice come off the cabinets. 4 years in that house, and I had never once been loud in it. I sat down. My hands were still shaking. "Dad," Weston was at the bottom of the stairs. Grant turned. "Go upstairs. You said Eli was at Aunt Nell's." "This is between me and Corinne." Harper appeared halfway down. "Wasn't he with Nell?" "No," I said. "Dad told us he didn't want to come." She looked at me, then at the bag in her hand. "I bought him something." Nobody spoke. Then Weston said, quietly, "We would have wanted him there." There was no anger in it. That made it worse. Grant looked at his son, and whatever he had been assembling fell apart in his hands. I said, "I need you to stay somewhere else tonight. You're throwing me out of my own house. I'm asking you to give him room while we figure out what happens next." He packed a bag. He didn't slam anything. I almost wished he had. After the garage door came down, I went upstairs to our closet and stood in front of the strip of oak with 3 names burned into it. I got a screwdriver from the drawer. It took less than a minute. I carried the board out to the garbage, and I did not feel triumphant. I felt like somebody taking down a sign that had been telling the truth the whole time. He called me the next morning from wherever he was staying. His voice had changed, softer, reasonable. The voice he used when he wanted us to solve something together. "Corinne, I need you to make sure they understand the context." "What context?" "That Eli isn't like most 8-year-olds. He's capable. You know that." And there it was. In 4 years of marriage, Grant almost never asked me to lie for him. He asked me to explain him. When he missed Eli's school concert, I was the one who told a 6-year-old that Grant had been buried at work. When Weston got a new baseball glove for Christmas and Eli got a desk lamp, I was the one who said, "He knows how much you like to read in bed." When Grant got short because Eli wanted to sit next to me at a restaurant, I was the one who said that blended families take time. Grant could be thoughtless. I supplied the thought. Grant could be unfair. I supplied the context. "I'll tell them what happened," I said. "That's all I'm asking." "No, it isn't. You want me to tell it the way you've always had me tell it, where you come out tired instead of careless." He didn't answer that. "I'm done doing that part." Robin Ackley called me that afternoon, Grant's ex-wife. In 4 years, we had exchanged maybe 40 words, all about pickup times. "I'm not calling to be your friend," she said. "I'm calling because my attorney told me I should." "Okay." "Do you know why I divorced him?" I said I had assumed it was the ordinary reasons. "March of 2019, she said. "He left Weston and Harper by themselves for 2 nights and went to Nashville. Weston was 9, Harper was 6. A pause. "I'm the one who called the police." I stood up. I don't remember deciding to. "He pleaded to child endangering in Delaware County, a misdemeanor, parenting class, probation, over in a year." Another pause. "The conviction is still there. It's public. Anybody can look it up in 4 minutes," I heard myself say, very quietly. I married him in 2021. "I know," Robin said. "I've wondered for 4 years whether you knew." Neither of us said anything for a moment. Then she said, "You want to know what actually frightens me? It isn't what he did to your son. It's that my kids spent 7 days on that boat being told their brother didn't want to come, and they were happy." Her voice stayed flat. "He taught them that was normal. That's the part I have to undo." She told me she had already filed to modify parenting time. Supervised visits only, until he completed counseling. Her lawyer had advised her to document that she'd notified me. That was the reason for the call, and she said so plainly. And I have never respected anyone more for it. I called Detective Ruiz. I told him about Delaware County. He didn't say anything for what felt like a long time. "Say that county again." I said it. I heard a pen. I heard a chair. Then he said, "Ma'am, I'd like to call you back in an hour." He called back in 40 minutes. Under Ohio law, he explained, endangering a child is a first-degree misdemeanor, unless the person has a prior conviction under that same section. Then, it becomes a felony of the 4th degree. The prosecutor's office had already pulled the 2019 file. So what changes? Everything, he said. Up to now, this was a bad week that a man could apologize his way out of. As of this afternoon, it's a pattern. And the pattern is in writing. And he signed the first page of it himself 6 years ago. That evening, Eli was packing a bag at my sister's, and I opened the drawer of his nightstand, looking for his reader for school. There was a photograph in it. His father, Danny Rourke in a green jacket, squinting on somebody's driveway. Eli was 4 when he died. The picture was lying face down. "Why is it turned over, bud?" He didn't even look up from the bag. "Because Grant said looking at it made things feel heavy." I put it back exactly the way I found it. Because I did not trust my face. And I closed the drawer. 4 names had become 3 on a reservation. 1 name had been turned face down in a drawer. I was starting to see that my husband did not remove people all at once. He did it the way water takes a bank, from underneath, where nobody was looking. We met at Patrice's office 2 days later. He looked awful. No tan can survive a week like that. I put a folder on the table. "What is that?" I laid it out 1 page at a time. The original confirmation, 4 guests, the modification, 3, the credit card statement, with the refund and the 3 charges circled, and last, a printout of my work calendar. My company confirmed Rotterdam on February 7th. He didn't touch it. You canceled him on February 10th. I don't remember exactly why I changed it that day. I didn't answer. You don't believe me. I still didn't answer. That was new for me. My whole life, I had rescued people out of uncomfortable silences. I sat there and let this one stay on the table with the paperwork, and I watched what it did to him. Eventually, he put both hands over his face. I wanted the time with Weston and Harper. They've had to share me with a new marriage, a new house, all of it. Then why book him in the first place? I don't know. Yes, you did. He looked at the window for a while. Then, "Once I knew you were going to Rotterdam, I thought it would be easier." Easier for whom? Nothing. Grant, easier for whom? For me. It was the first entirely honest answer he had given me in 6 weeks. "I never thought of it as leaving him," he said. "I believe you." He looked almost relieved. "That doesn't mean you didn't." The formal interview was not dramatic. No shouting. Adults in a plain room asking questions that required plain answers. Did I approve of Eli being home alone? No. Did I know about the cruise? No. Who did I believe was caring for him? My husband. Then, would you describe Elias as unusually independent for his age? I knew exactly what Grant wanted me to say. And Eli is independent. He packs his own lunch. He remembers library day better than I do. He can make scrambled eggs if I stand nearby and remind him the burner is not a launch pad. But that wasn't what they were asking. "He's responsible," I said. "He's still 8. That was all. I didn't make Grant worse. I stopped making him better. They asked me things too. That surprised me, and it shouldn't have. Had I arranged backup care before leaving the country? No. Had I confirmed anything with Mrs. Strander myself? No. And then, without any edge in her voice, "Your son says he didn't call you because he was told not to bother you." "Who made that rule?" I said. My husband wrote it down. She waited. But I'm the one who said it first. 3 weeks before I flew out. I stood in my kitchen and told him I needed 10 days where I wasn't fixing everything from 5,000 miles away. I had meant plumbers, school forms, not this, but I had said it, and he had used it, and I was not going to sit in that room and pretend otherwise. Weston and Harper came to Nell's that weekend. Harper had a small bag from the ship. Eli was at the dining table drawing when they came in. She pulled out a keychain and set it down in front of him. I got you this. He turned it over. Thanks. She stood there. Then, Dad told us you didn't want to come. Eli looked up. Come where? The cruise. I didn't know there was a cruise. Harper's face came apart. She sat down next to him and cried into her sleeve. And my son, the one who had been left behind, pushed the tissue box across the table towards her. Of course he did. Ruiz called on a Tuesday in June. Grant pleaded to endangering children. A felony of the 4th degree. 11 months. 2 years of supervision after release. No unsupervised contact with any minor for the duration. A parenting program he could not talk his way out of. And his name entered into the state's child abuse and neglect records, where it will sit long after the 11 months are over. People asked if I was satisfied. I don't think that's the word. The booking photo is a public record. I found it one night, sitting at the kitchen table. He was wearing a shirt I used to iron. He was looking straight into the lens with his chin slightly up, like a man who still believed something was being misunderstood. Behind me, Eli said, Mom, how do you spell burden? I closed the laptop. Burden. The divorce took longer than I wanted and less time than I feared. There was no courtroom victory. No judge gave Grant a speech about what kind of man he was. Nobody handed me the house and congratulated me for surviving. There were forms, bank statements, and emails about patio furniture that made 2 adults sound ridiculous. The house had to go. We had bought it together the year we married, both names. Most of it still owed to a bank, and one salary could not carry it. I had planted hydrangeas along that back fence our first spring. Eli helped, which mostly meant digging one enormous hole where no hole was needed and locating 17 worms. We moved 10 minutes away, into a townhouse with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen designed by somebody who believed nobody needs more than 4 cabinets. It kept him in the same school district. That was the whole calculation. I missed things. The garden, my kitchen window. Sometimes I missed Grant, not because I regret leaving, but because 4 years don't disappear just because somebody hands you a reason to end them. There were nights he sat up with me when I couldn't sleep after Danny died. Those things were real. So were the 6 days. You don't have to erase the good memories to justify leaving. You just have to stop using them to excuse what you can't live with. Eli found the hooks on moving day, 2 of them, already screwed into the wall by the door. Whose are these? One's yours, one's mine. He looked at them. What about the 3rd one? There isn't a 3rd one, he nodded, the way he does when something has been entered into the record, and hung his backpack up. I bought a frame that week. I put his father on the desk in his room, facing out, and said nothing. Eli walked past, stopped for a second, and kept going. That was all. That was enough. 4 months after the night Yolanda called me, we went back to the Millbrook market with flowers and a card. She came around the counter so fast she nearly took out a display of lottery tickets. Look at you. You got taller. It's only been 4 months, Eli said. Well, apparently you grew just to prove me right. On the way out, he stopped. The bench was still there. Same metal, same place. He sat down, and I sat next to him, and people went past. "You know what I thought that night?" he said. "That nobody knew where I was." He was watching a man load groceries into a minivan. "But Yolanda saw me," Weston called in the spring. Grant was out by then, and he'd asked about Tennessee. "He said the three of us could go." I waited. "So I asked him, 3? What did he say?" Weston was quiet a moment. "He said 4, if Eli ever wants to." He said if, not when. "That's better, right?" "It's different. Same thing." "No, different is where better starts." The letter came in June. I put it on the counter, unopened. "You don't have to read that." Eli picked it up. "Did you read it?" "No." That surprised him. "You read everything. You read cereal boxes. That's important nutritional journalism." Hein took it upstairs. He never told me what was in it. All he ever said was, "He said sorry. Okay." "Do I have to write back?" "No." "Can I later?" "Sure." That seemed to settle it. The question came on the bench, the way I knew it would. "Do you think Grant's a bad person?" "I don't think people are only the worst thing they've ever done." He waited, because 8-year-olds are patient when they know you're circling. "But I don't think they get to walk past the worst thing they've ever done just because they said sorry. He has to live with it. You don't." In the parking lot, I gave him a cheap phone with one rule. "There is no such thing as bothering me. There's no line you have to get over. You press it. I answer. That's it." He set it up in the car, taking his time, then turned the screen around. 1. Mom. 2. Aunt Nell. 3. Yolanda. "What about 4? He looked back at the store. "I left it empty, in case there's somebody else." I used to think what I had to teach my son was how to survive 6 days. It turned out what he needed to learn was how many people would come, and that he never has to earn a single one of them. If this one stayed with you, thank you for listening all the way through. I want to ask you something, and I do read the comments. Could you forgive a man like Grant? And is forgiving somebody the same as letting them back in? Tell me below. Somebody scrolling past tonight needs to read your answer more than they need to read mine. And if there's a Yolanda in your life, a stranger who saw you on the day you most needed to be seen, tell me about them. I'd like to know their name. If you want more stories like this one, subscribe and turn on the bell. New story every week. And if there's a child in your life who needs to hear it, tell them they never have to decide whether their problem is big enough. That part is our job.